You've seen it, right? You're at the airport, and there's the person making a big show of adjusting their super expensive watch. But then you see the other person, the one already sitting in first class, just chilling in a simple t-shirt. That one image right there shows the huge, huge gap between looking rich and actually being wealthy. We're going to break down the blueprint for real financial freedom, and it's all about cutting through the noise.
I mean, think about it. One person is literally performing for an audience. They're making sure everyone sees the shiny object on their wrist. The other person, they're already there. They don't need anyone to clap for them. It's such a powerful reminder that real wealth is often quiet. It's understated. It's focused on the actual experience, not the show you put on for everyone else. You know, this quote right here, it came from a guy who was quietly pulling in $40,000 a month from 38 different properties. And you know what he wore? Old blue jeans. Someone finally got up the nerve to ask him why, and that was his answer. Simple, powerful. And that one sentence, that's the foundation for everything we're about to get into. Building a life on actual financial security, not just getting likes on social media. So, here's the game plan. First, we're going to totally dismantle the wealth illusion. Then, we'll dive into how the truly wealthy think and, just as importantly, how they spend. From there, we'll talk about the real endgame, owning your own life. And finally, we'll uncover what the actual win is in all of this. All right, first up, the wealth illusion. This whole section is about a choice, a really critical one. Are you building your net worth, or are you chasing what you could call net applause? You know, that validation, the likes, the nods of approval from people when you look rich. One of these builds a life of freedom. The other one, it's just an empty echo. So let's go back to our guy in the old blue jeans for a second. On the surface, he's just an everyday dude. But underneath it all, those 38 properties were like a financial engine, just humming along, working for him 24/7. He knew the secret. Flashy stuff is usually rented or leased, but the quiet, kind of boring stuff, like real estate, that's what you own. His focus was on his bottom line, not on whether anyone noticed his outfit. But that kind of discipline, it doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It all starts with a shift inside your head. And that brings us to our next section, thinking like the wealthy. Because, you know, true wealth isn't really about what's in your bank account today. It's about the mental framework you build long before the big money ever shows up. And at the absolute heart of this whole framework is a concept we've all heard a million times, but very few of us really master: delayed gratification. Now, this isn't about punishing yourself or never having fun. It's actually a strategic choice. It's about saying no to the small, kind of meaningless impulse buy today so you could have a much bigger, way more meaningful reward later on. It's really about protecting your future self from a momentary whim. So how do you actually do this? Well, here's a super powerful, real-world example. A friend was getting tempted by this $15,000 watch, but instead of just buying it, he put this 90-day rule into place. His thinking was, if I'm still obsessed with it in 3 months, okay, the desire's real. But if not, it was just an impulse. This simple little system creates a buffer zone between you and all the marketing that's constantly screaming for your attention. It gives you room to breathe. And these days, that space is a priceless asset. Okay, but here's where this mindset gets really interesting, because it can look like a total paradox. I have a friend, Nelson, who would agonize for weeks over which laptop to buy. A pretty small purchase, right? But then he dropped 20 grand on a business mastermind program in literally 5 minutes. Why? Because he instantly knew the difference between a want and a win. He was slow, almost painfully frugal with things he would just consume, but he was lightning fast on things that could actually build future value. It really all boils down to a single question that filters every single decision. It's not, what are people going to think if I buy this? No, it's, what can this build for me? And when your long-term vision is that clear, it becomes incredibly easy to tell the difference between an expense that just drains you and an investment that's going to push you forward. So once that internal mindset is locked in, how does it actually play out in the real world? Well, that brings us to our next part, spend like the wealthy. This is all about how you approach the big buys in life by clearly separating assets, things that put money back in your pocket, from liabilities, which, you guessed it, take money out. If you can get this one thing right, it will change your entire financial life. Let's start with what is, for most people, the biggest liability they own, a new car. And just look at this chart. It's staggering. That bar on the right shows that after just 5 years, the average car has lost a whopping 60% of its value. That is the financial equivalent of just lighting a giant pile of your hard-earned cash on fire. The financially savvy, they see this trap from a mile away and just refuse to play that game. So here's the key takeaway. They treat a car like a toaster. Yeah, a toaster. Is it useful? Absolutely. Does it need to define who you are? Not a chance. The person driving that 7-year-old Camry might be light years ahead, financially, of the person stretching themselves thin to lease a luxury SUV they can't really afford. They just buy what they need, pay it off, and get on with their life, not their car payment.
And the exact same logic applies to the biggest purchase most of us will ever make, our home. You have to remember, just because a bank says they'll lend you a ton of money doesn't mean you should take it. This leads to maybe one of the most important questions you can ever ask yourself. Is your home a foundation that's supporting your life, or is it a financial weight that's slowly suffocating you?
Check out this true story. A couple got approved for $1 million mortgage, but instead, they bought a perfectly comfortable $400,000 house. The result? They paid it off years and years early, they invested that massive difference, and they bought themselves something truly priceless: peace of mind. They totally avoided that house-rich, cash-poor trap, and that one single decision made all the difference in the world. And that difference, that peace of mind, it brings us to a really important shift in thinking. Because the goal isn't just to pile up more and more money. The real objective, the thing that drives all of these decisions, is to own your life. And in the game of life, the true currency isn't dollars, it's time. You know, we all get the same 24 hours in a day. The only difference is how we use them. For most of us, a huge slice of that pie is just treated away for dollars. But the truly wealthy, they measure success differently. They measure it by how much of that circle they actually own, time that is theirs and theirs alone to do whatever they want with. So the real challenge for all of us becomes, how do you start to flip that ratio? How can you strategically use some of your dollars to buy back more of your hours? The ultimate financial goal is to shift from a life where you are constantly working for your money to a life where your money finally starts working for you. And hey, it starts small. Maybe you hire someone to mow the lawn, not because you're lazy, but because your Saturday afternoon is worth more to you than what it costs. You start to use money as a shield to protect your energy and your focus for what really matters. And the end game? It's turning your calendar from a to-do list that other people dictate into a menu of choices that you control. Okay, so you've got control of your money, and you've started to buy back your time. What's next? Is that it? Well, that leads us to our final and honestly our most important section, the real win. Because once you have that freedom, the biggest question of all is still sitting there. What is all this for? This is about finding a purpose that goes way, way beyond the numbers in a portfolio. And what you'll find is that for so many people, that purpose shows up as this quiet generosity. It's not for a social media post, it's not for public praise. It's about having built such a surplus of time, energy, and money that you can genuinely change someone's life for the better without needing a single thing back in return. And look, this isn't just some feel-good idea. The actual data backs this up. A huge Harvard study on millionaires found that a high net worth by itself does not lead to happiness. The people who were truly fulfilled, they were the ones who had attached a clear purpose to their wealth. They were using their money as a tool to support causes, to build communities, and to make a real impact. So let's end this right back where we started. At the end of the day, it all comes down to a single fundamental choice. As you go about building your life, what do you really want to own? More stuff that fills your garage and needs applause? Or more of your life itself, your time, your freedom, your purpose? The answer to that one question, well, it changes everything.